So Be'ezrat Hashem, we are going to start learning Shir HaShirim. But before we go into Shir HaShirim and into the actual psukim, pasuk by pasuk, we need an introduction, because Shir HaShirim is this very mysterious, romantic, transcendental, maybe is the word, right? Ununderstandable sefer, which without a real framework to understand it, we're going to be a little bit lost. We'll still be a little bit lost, but that's okay. Sometimes it's good to be lost, okay? Or at least know that you're lost. So I want to start out, being that Shir HaShirim is all about love, is the love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael's love to Hashem. And it's basically a conversation, okay? The Aushach-Join divides it into 5 different conversations, okay? We're gonna go into that. We'll learn the shita of the Aushach, how he divides Shir HaShirim. We'll learn different shitos, but we'll use a lot of the Aushach. After all, we're in Tzfat, or at least those in New Zealand, their heart is in Tzfat, right? So we're gonna learn a lot of Aushach. Aushach, of course, lived in Tzfat. He's buried in Tzfat. Okay, so what is the mitzvah of Avos Hashem? Right? We have a mitzvah. We say it every day, multiple times a day. Ve'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. Love Hashem, your God. How do we love Hashem? What does love mean? And like all mitzvahs, right? Mitzvahs come with shirim. Mitzvahs come with measurement. Thank you. And they come with measurement. So how do I know when I have fulfilled the mitzvah of Ve'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, of loving Hashem? What does it mean to love Hashem? How do I love Hashem? Right? So the Rambam, of course, explains to us this. And he says in Mitzvahs Avos Hashem, in the Mishnah Torah, we were commanded to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like it says in Devarim, and you should love Hashem, your God. Ve'inyan ha-mitzvah. And what's the inyan? What's the aspect of the mitzvah? Shenachshov, that we'll think, v'nitbonein, and we'll contemplate, b'pikudav u'b'pu'olatav, with his commandments and with his actions, Hashem's commandments and Hashem's actions, ad shenasiguhu k'fi yecholtenu, until we understand him according to our ability. Now, isn't that interesting how the Rambam automatically says each person is going to fulfill this mitzvah according to their ability, right? It's something that's individual. There's not, okay, you have to have, 2 kazesim of matzah, right? We can't measure it. But each person has to nachshov, think, nitbonein, contemplate. 2 things until he reaches his understanding. V'nitaneg behasagato, b'tachlis ha'oneg. But that's not enough. So once a person begins to understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu, begins to formulate in their mind what Hashem's mitzvahs are, what Hashem's actions are, he's not finished. He has the next step. The next step is to enjoy the knowledge and the understanding that he has, b'tachlis ha'oneg, in the essence of what oneg means, joy means. V'zoti ha'ava ha'mechuyevet. And this is the ava which a person is required. Okay, so we don't exactly know what that is yet, right? We could say the words, right? We have to think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, contemplate HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his actions until we could understand them and grasp them to the greatest way that we can, according to our ability, right? And we have to take delight in that knowledge and relish that knowledge. And that's a love that we are required. And the Sifri, the Rambam then quotes the Sifri, it says, how do I love Hashem? How does the person, thank you. How does the human being love HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Here, this is the worship. Thank you so much.
Excuse me. So just take one and pass, and then take the next bunch.
Do you have the original, please? Okay. All right. But at some point.
No, I'm going to have to finish.
Okay, let's say that. So maybe make 1 copy for yourself, and then give me the rest. Okay, thanks. Talmud Loimar. So the pasuk tells us, "V'hayu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavcha hayoim al levavecha." How does a person love HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Through the pasuk tells us, Put these things that I have commanded to you, upon your heart. Through doing this, through piling all of the words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us, the Torah on our heart, that's how you will come to recognize him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who said, let the world be, created the world. This one, Mitzvahs Avos Hashem. Through his bonus Torah, through contemplating the Torah, Tityashev ha'ava belev behechrech. Through learning Torah, a person will come to Avos Hashem. V'amru zichronam livracha. Here, v'amru zichronam livracha. And the rabbis teach us, shezois ha'ava tichayev ha'adam le'orer b'nei adam ba'avaso. La'avdo, k'mo shematzinu be'Avraham. And then there's one more piece. Once a person has contemplated HaKadosh Baruch Hu's pikud of his mitzvahs and his great deeds, and he's enjoying this, he's delighting in this, that's love, right? Love is the delight, the love. He comes to love the Torah, love HaKadosh Baruch Hu's commandment, love everything about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, hashgacha pratis. That's not going to be enough to fulfill the mitzvah of V'ahavta, because part of fulfilling the mitzvah of V'ahavta is sharing that great love and that great delight with other people, just like Avraham Avinu. And then, Shorish mitzvah zu yadua. The root of this mitzvah is known. Shelo yikayim ha'adam mitzvahs Hashem Baruch Hu yafeh rak be'avaso oso. What this mitzvah, the root of this mitzvah is obvious. It's not just to do mitzvah, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't put us in this world, and he programmed us, right? Do mitzvahs. We're not robots, right? And not only are we not robots, but we're feeling beings. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do the mitzvahs with ahava, with love. The whole point of mitzvah comes from the lashon of tzaveh, is tzavta, is connection, is tied, is intertwined, is relationship. The point of the mitzvahs is to build a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So a person could be Nikayim all of the mitzvahs, but they have, I don't know about zero, that's kind of hard to imagine, but they have a low percentage relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? In the beginning of the war, I had a very interesting conversation with one of my sister-in-law. And so I was sharing with her a story that I heard about, and I don't remember her name, I apologize, one of the women who lived in one of the yeshuvim or the kibbutzim in Otef Aza. And she survived October 7th. She was alone in her house. She's an almanah, she's a widow, and she was alone, and she stayed locked up in her mamad for, I think it was 22 hours. And the entire time, right, she went in and out of, consciousness at a certain point. But whenever she was conscious, she was just saying, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for this one more minute. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the last minute that I was saved. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for sending the angels to protect me. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that I was breathing for one more minute. And that's how she went through 22 hours. And I saw an interview of her. They're interviewing her, and she's a huge picture of the Rabbi, of the Lubavitcher Rebbe behind her. And so the woman on Kan 11, which is not a religious, to say the least, station, said to her, she told her story. She goes, oh, well, you're a very religious person. She goes, me, I'm not religious. I'm not religious. And she said, well, what's that huge picture of the Rabbi doing it like, and I mean huge, I mean like huge. What's the huge picture of the Rabbi doing in your house? She goes, oh, my grandchildren are Chabad, and they gave it to me for a birthday present. And she's like, and you're not religious? She goes, no, I don't know anything about religion, like nothing. And obviously she's an extremely religious person, right? So I said the story over to my sister-in-law. I have to give a drop of background. My sister-in-laws, they grew up in Bnei Brak. They lived in Bnei Brak. They don't know who Lipa Schmelter is. Like, they're very, very, like very insular, right? Like Yishai Rebo, they never heard of him, right? Okay, things like that. But what's normal?
The girls listen to that.
What's normal Haredi culture for us, right, is not. They've never even heard of it, right? Nothing. No clue what these things are. And so when I told her this story, she said to me, I don't understand. Doesn't such a deep understanding of hashgacha pratis obligate a person to keep mitzvahs? And like if somebody could understand that Hashem is so watching over them, wouldn't they automatically, from their seichel, from logically keep mitzvahs? So my reply to her is, well, what about people who keep mitzvahs all day but don't know Hashem, right? And we find the source for this in what I think is one of the saddest psukim in the entire Torah. In the beginning of Shmuel Aleph, we meet the sons of Eli HaKohen. Eli HaKohen is the Kohen Gadol in the Mishkan, right? He's a tzaddik, he's a navi, he's a shofet, he's everything. And he has two sons, Hophni and Pinchas, who are Kohanim, right? They're sacrificing and nothing's happening to them. So they must have been also doing things. Every I was dotted, every T was crossed. They're 100%. And what does the pasuk say about them? That they didn't know God. How is it possible that somebody who worked in the Mishkan, right, saw the fire come down, consume the korbanos, the ketores, which went up, all of the miracles which happened in the Mishkan, the lo yadu, and they didn't know God? What does that mean? That means that it's possible for a person to be a kohen. It's possible for a person to be a rebbitzin. It's possible for a person to be a big rav. It's possible for a person to do all of the mitzvahs, dot every I and cross every T, but yet not know HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's very scary. That's very sad, right? To me, that's the saddest. And sometimes I think about that, as for myself, right? What does it mean, right, that I need to have a conversation with the Indian man who runs my website, who lives in India, right, and is not Muslim, he's Hindu or whatever. And I said to him something he did had very successful. He goes, thank God, right? Thank God. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank God, right? So I need to hear from him, thank God, right? I didn't start my sentence off with thank God. And I look at myself and I say to myself, wait a second. I'm Hophni and Pinchas for that moment, right? I'm not seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this pe'ula, in this activity. I'm connected enough. So I might dot every I and cross every T. My house is kosher, keep Shabbos, I keep Sfiras HaOmer, right? I'm counting Sfiras HaOmer. But what about the inside, right? There's this great poem, I'm sure you've all seen it. If not, I'll send it to you. It's called The Dash. Okay, and it's about a tombstone, right? That every tombstone, there's born in 19 whatever, right? Or now, maybe that's already old. Born in 19 whatever, lived till, and there's that dash, right?
There's birth and there's death.
There's birth and there's death.
B, what comes in between B and D?
Exactly. What is that exactly? That dash. What happened during that dash, right? So who did I love during that dash? What did I give over during that dash, right? So the I's and the T's, those are important. We're not saying they're not important. The Rambam just said that that's very important, right? But there's a part that comes with the I's and the T's. And that's what Shir HaShirim is about. Shir HaShirim is about not just having the I's and the T's, but having the relationship, having the love, having the deep fulfillment and joy of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, right? Because if we're not enjoying it, if we're not loving it, right, then we need to take a step back and say, wait a second, where am I going wrong here? Because the mitzvahs are sweet, and the mitzvahs are here for us to enjoy and love. And the minute we're feeling overwhelmed or ready to retire, or it's too much, okay, or it's boring, okay, we need to take a step back and say, where am I here? Where am I not connected? And how do I repair those connections? Okay. So Dinei HaMitzvah, this is from the Sefer HaChinuch. The Dinei HaMitzvah, Shera'ui lo la'adam, she'yatzin kol machshavato v'kol megamato achar ahavas Hashem. The Sefer HaChinuch, which explains every mitzvah in the Torah one by one, says, what's the halacha of mitzvah of ahavas Hashem? You should put all of his thought and all of his efforts after loving Hashem. V'ya'arich b'libo tamid, Ki kol ma shehu ba'olam me'ushar ubanim me'osher ubanim v'kavod hakol ke'enu ke'efes v'tov keneged avos baruch hu v'yageh tamid kol hayom b'vakashat achachma leman yasig yediyah bo. So it's the chinuch is saying this is like a constant concentration, right? A concentration on HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving me everything. He's giving me wealth. He's giving me children. He's giving me honor. And all of this is nothing, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us 1,000 shekels. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the same thing as giving us 10 agurot, right? 1,000,000 shekels and 10 agurot is the same thing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no difference. Everything is ke'enu ke'efes, okay? And that a person, we have to work hard. We have to constantly be contemplated. Tamid, it's one of the 6 mitzvahs tamidios, right? The 6 constant mitzvahs of seeking after the wisdom so that we can understand the joy and the love that comes with the mitzvahs. Sof davar ya'aseh kol yicholto lahargil machshavos libo kol hayom, the entire day, to train ourselves, to direct our thoughts to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his faith in him and his oneness. Until there's not 1 minute during the day or at night, when we're awake, a person needs to train themselves until they are obsessed with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Until they can't think of anything else except for Hashem Yisbarach and their love for Hashem Yisbarach. And that, by the way, that doesn't mean that we don't think, what? That's what it is, but that doesn't mean that we don't ever think about other people, right? We think of other people, but we're now viewing other people as Tzelem Elohim, and every person we look at, we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu pulsating within them, right? It's not that we don't care about other people and we're only with God, right? This is not about living in a convent, okay, or some kind of cave somewhere. But now it's hard for us to understand that. How can we understand that? Let's give a mashal. So it's just like when a man or a woman, right, is completely in love with somebody and they cannot think about anything else except for how are they going to get that woman, right? How are they going to get her to say yes and marry them? What can they do? They're obsessed. So they think about all day and they walk in the park, right? And what do they see? Oh, I wonder if my beloved would like this park. And they're in the store and they wonder, they're trying to decide between 2 different products. I wonder which one my beloved would like more, right? And when they think everything they do, I wonder if my beloved, what she would say if she would see me doing this, right? And everything is always about this woman that they love, or if it's easier if you invert it, right? I wonder what this man would say, right? The man that I love, the man that I want to marry me. What would he say? What would he want? What would he do? What would he think? Okay? Love. V'yeter prateha mivuarim b'mekomos b'Talmud, and it's the rest, the details are explained in the Gemara and in the Midrashim. And of course, this mitzvah is something which has to be done in all times, all the time. Men and women were all obligated in Avos Hashem. ועובר על זה וקובע מחשבתו בעניינים הגשמיים ובהבלי העולם שלא לשם שמיים רק להסתנג בהם לבד, או להשיג כבוד העולם הזה הכואב להגדיל שמו. לא לכוונה להטיב לטובים ולחזק יד ישרים. ביטל עשה זה, this is something, this got mixed up. This is not, the words here are all twisted. And I'm not sure what, okay? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us these great mitzvahs in order to, and we have mitzvahs from the time we wake up, right? We have very clear instruction, how we wake up, what we say, how we wash our hands, when we eat, how we eat, what we say before we eat, what we say after we eat, what we eat, right? Think about when we eat, how many mitzvahs go into every bite that we're taking, right? Kashrus, right? It has to be kosher. Besides the fact that it has to be kosher, there has to be trumot u'masrot, right? It has all the many intricate details of kashrus. How did it get here? We have to buy it appropriately, right? We can't steal, okay? And we buy it, and now we're not buying chametz she'al v'alav b'Pesach. So even if it has a hechsher, but that's edah charedit. If it was belonged to a store that didn't sell their chametz, we're not going to buy it. So we're careful, and we're careful. We have layer upon layer upon layer. And not only that, but we're going to cook it in the right way, or we're going to prepare it in the right way. We're going to check it for bugs, and we're going to make the right bracha. And we're going to think, wait a second, what bracha do I actually make on this, right? I don't know. Okay, I'm sure there's some app that you could scan food, right? I'm sure there is. Okay, an app that you can scan food and it will tell you what bracha to make. What bracha do I make? So then I make the bracha and then I eat it, right? And then I don't talk between when I make the bracha and when I finish the first kizayit, right? And then I'm not finished there, right? I still have to make an after bracha, okay? So, and it goes and on and on, so many mitzvahs, which go into every bite that we take. So we're trained automatically to think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu all the time, because everything we do is always Misaviv HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything, right? There's this great book called Skull Caps and Switchblades, an old book, right? You read it? Is you allowed? Oh, okay. It's about a Chabad chassid who lived in Buffalo, New York, who was a public.
I'm sorry, I was born in Buffalo.
Oh, okay. So he taught in an inner city school in Buffalo, Chinuch Miyuchad, special education, right? And his name was Lazarus, and the kids called him Mr. Laz, if I remember correctly, right? I mean, I read this. I didn't actually read this book. My teacher in 5th or 6th grade, if we were good, we got like a chapter, and he would read to us the chapter, right?
What's the book called? I want to go to
Skull Caps and Switchblades.
Very funny book.
A very funny book.
But it's from my day. It's not good. It's like 100 years old.
It's not such 100 years old. It came out when I was a kid in elementary school. Skull Caps and Switchblades. And skull caps, the makom, and switchblades, right?
Gangs.
A from yid amongst all these gangsters, right? And that's literally what it was. So he was really good with his kids, and there it happened to be sometimes in the winter he would have to put tefillin on in the back of the classroom. Okay, so he had taught his kids a lot about tefillin, and they would sometimes come over to his house on Shabbos, so they knew about Shabbos.
But they weren't Jewish.
No, inner city.
So why is he teaching about tefillin?
Because he had to put tefillin on in the classroom, because by the time Shacharis was, he had to be at work already, right? By the time it was the time that you would lay tefillin. So one time he went with them on a field trip, and he goes into the bathroom, and he comes out of the bathroom, he makes a pit stop, and he makes his brachos out loud. So he starts saying Asher Yatzar, and they all of a sudden realize he's making a blessing. They're like, no way, man. There's a blessing on the bathroom, right? No way, right? No way. That can't be, right? There's a blessing on the bathroom. He's like, yeah, everything directs us to God. Everything connects us to God. Our day is full from the minute we wake up until we go to sleep. And even when we're sleeping, right, we're doing mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So building that consciousness is what the mitzvahs are for. But we need to add in the part about the love.
Did any of them become Karen?
I don't know. I don't think that was the goal.
They all come
Okay.
northern.
Well,
All the kids come northern.
that I don't know. We'd have to have part 2. Okay. But it was a very, very, very entertaining book.
No, they weren't Jewish.
Okay. He has a good sense of humor.
He wrote
Okay. The teacher wrote the book.
it.
Yeah.
And it's a true story.
It's a true story. Yeah. True stories.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. All true stories are.
Based on it.
Right. Find very often that after a couple minutes, it's hard to remember what the truth actually, technically, down was. We all have our version. Okay. The next thing I want to look at is a introduction by Harav Mordechai Gifter, Alav HaShalom, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. Here it says Shlita. That tells you how old this is. Because he was nifter like over 30 years ago, or more, maybe even more, maybe 40 years ago. And he wrote this as the introduction to the art school Shir HaShirim. And they didn't translate it, and we'll learn it together. It's really beautiful, and it really sets the tone of what we're going to be doing in our studies of Shir HaShirim. Yeah, we're doing Shir HaShirim.
You missed the very beginning.
Kol Hashirim Kodesh, v'Shir HaShirim Kodesh Kadashim. The Midrash tells us that all songs are holy, but Shir HaShirim is holy of holies, right? So now Rav Gifter is going to explain to us what that means. Aleph, Tachlis Habriya, the purpose of creation, Hatavat Haborei Baruch Hu Lezulato, and is the goodness, the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives of his good to another being. Shekablu Habruim Me'oto Hatov, that we should receive from him the good. She'ein mitziuto ela b'borei Baruch Hu, and to realize that good only comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his goodness. And the only way to get good is to cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Clinging to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Geder ha'ava, the parameters of love, dveikus ha'ohev baneha, is the clinging of the love to the beloved. Lo mishum eze tachlis, not for any reason, b'to elis or benefit, ela mitzad atzmo, but for himself. Shekol shehu le'ezo to elis, as long as it's like to get something, to attain something for a certain benefit. Yesh b'ze mishum rikuz ba'atzmo v'lo b'ne'ahav. Then the person is focusing on who? Themselves and their goal and their agenda, right? And not for the beloved. And therefore our rabbis teach us, right? We read it in Pirkei Avos 2 weeks ago. We don't want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order to get some kind of reward, right? Or lifrosh me'avera, or just not to do anything bad. Because we're afraid of getting punished. But our doing of the mitzvahs should be from love. Okay? It's not to get a prize. It's not to get a prize. Okay. Uh-oh. Gimel. Bios shegazra chachmasar yisparach sheyehe adam murkav min neshama v'guf. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his endless wisdom, he decreed that we be formed from a soul and a body. Asher b'yesodam hem hafachim, which they are complete opposites, the soul and the body. Nikva'a lo avodaso lahagbir koach haneshama ala guf. And he demanded, he created, he set the bar that we have to increase the power of the soul over the body and to purify it. Until they're in love in such a way and they're working together in such a way that the neshama, though, is the one who's leading. Okay? But as we know, the neshama can't function unless it has a body, and not just any body, a functioning body. But not only a functioning body, a body that feels, a body that has chush, has senses. There's no perfection here. Of purifying the material which is united within the soul. And look in Parshas Mishpatim, Ve'el atzilei b'nei Yisrael lo shalach yado v'yechazu es Elokim v'yachlu v'yishtu. Okay, and we actually had that pasuk again in Parsha Shmini just now. Not exactly the same pasuk, but this is talking about the children of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. Thank you. Okay, that they saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were on, right? They went on Har Sinai. They were allowed to come up to X, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu went further. He's enveloped in the cloud, and they saw the godliness of Hashem, and they ate and they drank. Now, what does that mean? What is the pasuk coming to tell us? The pasuk is coming to tell us that they were living spiritually within a physical body. They had achieved this great balance, right? This great achievement that we're always talking about being holy, right? Really being holy. What's being holy? That they see the image of God and they could drink and eat in complete holiness. Okay? It doesn't mean that not to drink it. Ubi Gemara, and the Gemara Maseches Brachos tells us, Ha'olam haba, this world, ein ba lo achila v'lo shasiya v'chulei ela, oh no. Is yours better?
הצדיקים יושבים בה. it's funny.
Is this better?
What's the problem?
No, it's cut off.
I don't think mine's cut off.
Yeah, it's cut off.
Is it?
No, yours
No.
isn't cut off.
Yeah, this is.
No, yours is cut off even more than mine.
Oh. So it looks like it's finished, but it's not.
Okay.
Sorry.
What the Gemara is telling us, and I don't remember the exact, I can't imagine that yours is different than hers. Oh, here, no.
Yay.
The tzaddikim are sitting, and the crowns are on the end, and they are basking and enjoying and delighting in the radiance of the Shekhinah. And then it quotes that pasuk about the Zakanim and Aaron and his children. They were satiated from the radiance of the Shekhinah, of the divine presence, as if they ate and drank. Meaning that it's possible for a person to be satiated physically from a spiritual experience. Okay? Because the
Isn't that
pleasure,
the only real pleasure?
Oh,
though?
yeah. That.
that's the only real pleasure.
Right.
That's the ultimate pleasure. What we think is pleasure is nothing compared to what's in store. Except for one thing that we do understand, which is what's going to be his point shortly, is love. Love is the greatest pleasure that exists in the world. To love and to be loved, which is our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? And that's, I guess, why this song is so popular, right? Hashem Yisbarach, Hashem Yitbarach, Tamid Ohev Oti, Tamid Yeli Rak Tov, right? We have to do the other part also, right? Ani Ohev Hashem, right? Tamid, I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu always, right? And I'm going to be thinking about him always and thanking him always, being cognitive. That song actually, there is a song like that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Anachnu Ohavim Otcha, right? So it should go one after another with each other. And that's the conversation of Shir HaShirim, right? The conversation of Shir HaShirim is, by Yisrael, we're constantly self-doubting ourselves, right? Hashem, you really love me? After what I did yesterday, you really love me, right? That's what Klal Yisrael says. After what we did yesterday by Chet HaEgel, you could really love us? How could you love us? How could you love us after Chet HaEgel? How can you love us after Chet HaMeraglim? How could you love us after you gave us the mun and we complained? You really could, like, how is that possible, right?
Yeah.
You really love us? You really, really, really love us? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers with all different mishalim, how much he loves us, how much he loves us, how much he loves us. And that's the essence of Shir HaShirim, that whatever happens, wherever we go, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us, and we love HaKadosh Baruch Hu,
Wow.
even if that love is tested, because that's real love. That's real love.
It
And
just
that's,
shows that real love is forgiveness.
I don't know if real love is forgiveness, right? I don't know, right? But whatever real love is, which we'll have a discussion about it, it's something which is the greatest pleasure that a person could experience in this world. And that's loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu and feeling loved by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, שאי אפשר לאדם בעל חומר להרגיש בעונג הנטול לגמרי מהחושים החומריים. A person, a human being, cannot have pleasure from something which has no physical sensations to it. We can't understand that. Yitzchak Avinu shebikesh levarech birkaso bikesh. When Yitzchak Avinu wanted to give the bracha over to his son, who he thought was Esau, or he didn't think was Esau, right? Va'aseli matamim. Why did he say, "Bring me, go get me something good to eat"? Right? Kasher ahavti, like I love. Ve'viali ba'achla ba'avur tivarechecha nafshi, that I should bless you b'terem amos, before I die. Why did he do that? Why did he want something to eat, and not just something to eat, something good to eat? Right? Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Hakol moedim ba'atzeres shebeinyan nemi lachem mem tes yom shenisna boi toirahu. Everybody talks. Everybody admits that atzeres, that's referring to Shavuos, right? The mem tes yom, the 49th days that we count. Bo torahu is Torah. Upirish Rashi, sheismach bo b'ma'achal u'b'mishteh. That on Shavuos, on the 4th, which is the 50th day, right after we count 49 days. Sheismach bo b'machal b'mishteh. What's the mitzvah of Shavuos? What's the Indian of one of the big Indians of Shavuos? cheesecake, food, right? Food,
And ice cream, cheesecake and ice cream. That's
cheesecake, ice cream, cheese puffs, cheese barekas, mozzarella sticks, whatever, lasagna, food, okay? Laharot shenoach u'mekubal yom zeh Yisrael. And also, we are supposed to eat fleishiks too, right? Yeah, I've got to get it both in, okay? So,
Steak.
what?
Steak.
Steak, meat, right? So machal and mishte is eating. Why? On the day of Matan Torah, on the day which is giving of the Torah, why do we need to eat? Maybe we shouldn't eat. We should just be learning. No, we need to eat. Why do we need to eat? And not just eat, but eat good food. Why? To show shenoach u'mekubal yom zeh Yisrael, that it's pleasant, it's enjoyable, and it's accepted this day to Klal Yisrael that Hashem gave the Torah. Okay, and then it's explained further in Rashi about the inyan of neshama yisera. Going on, Dalid, Avas Hashem b'mloa, Omeres b'tol mor shel ha'ohev el hane'ahav ad kedei dvekos v'ichud. Uleman hegiel liyedei kach tzarich adam lahargish begeder ahava b'zos derech hachush. So in order for somebody to really experience and really get to that madrega of loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being our beloved, until we can cling to him, we could experience dvekos and unification, you need to feel that. You need to feel it as a sense. Bebrias ha'adam ksiv, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man, al ken ya'azov ish es aviv ve'es imo, v'davak be'ishto v'hayu lebasar echad. It says about the creation of man and woman. Therefore, man will leave his father and leave his mother, and he will cling to his wife, and they will be one flesh. V'hu ha'dvekos ha'gemura, that's complete dvekos. That's dvekos of the lover and the beloved. V'ayin sham b'Rambam u'b'Sforno u'b'Iskayim bo ba'adam zu ha'dvekos v'chshar l'his'alos la'oso ha'dvekos ha'shlema shel bittul ha'ohev b'nehov sheba'avas Hashem. And through experiencing this v'hayala basar echad, of being one, of having someone who a person completely loves, is dedicated to, and receives love back for them. This is how a person could come to understand what it means to love HaKadosh Baruch. Okay? And what that means and what that's required of us. And this is why HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it's not good for man to be alone. Because he can't really understand in this physical body what it means to completely love HaKadosh Baruch Hu when he's alone. And he hasn't felt in his senses what it means to be obsessive in a good way, right? Not in a sick way, right? Obsessively, deeply in love, in a committed way. He hasn't, how could he understand that? And that tov. And that's why Chazal tell us that a man who's not married, he's missing out on everything good in this world. It says it's not good for man to be alone. Because good, which is really what is good, good is clinging to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because through clinging to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a person will merit to receive his good. That's true love and that's true good. And if he doesn't have an Isha, he's never going to get to this. Now, interestingly enough,
It doesn't talk about a woman.
it doesn't talk about a woman. Where does it talk about a woman? In Eben HaEzer, Siman Aleph. Interestingly enough, if you look there, and I'm telling you, I would love to teach this in every Beis Yaakov, but then I would never teach in another one again. Very clearly that a woman has no obligation to get married. Maybe the Rambam says, maybe the Rabbanan, but I don't think so.
So how come we
Right?
have so much more of a desire to want to?
Oh,
And then that's why I don't have sivui to do it.
because women have that, we don't need a
Yes.
commandment to tell us if you're missing out. We can feel that.
Yeah,
We can access that. We can channel and realize wait a second. We can love in a different way. We can love in a much deeper way, that we could feel those chushim. I think that's what I think. In my opinion, doesn't have
Is that why they think about it all the time?
probably.
It's just woman is a giver in nature.
It was the other way around.
She's the giver. She nurtures her children.
Without being required to.
Without any
Right.
single.
The halacha says a woman doesn't have to raise her children. She doesn't want to. En lakoach. She has the right to say, Kihila, give me tzedakah. I don't want to work. And if I raise these children, you have to support. It's the halacha. Eben Ezer, Siman Pei Gimel. Right? You find me a mother, right, who says, you know what? Take my kids. Right? I don't want them. Right? They can all go to pnimiot. They can all
your
go
kids
to
tell you, like,
Omna.
why did you have me?
That's
you me whatever you want. I'm like, oh, I don't.
That's
I don't do
another
anything.
story, right? That's children somehow have edited
Yeah.
the 10 Commandments, and they've cut and pasted instead of kabed es avicha ve'es imecha, honor your father and your mother. Somehow it ended up being honor your son and your daughter. Right? Okay, but that's not our. That's not in my version of the 10 Commandments. It's not even in the Christian version of the 10 Commandments. So I think we can leave it as it is. Lahavdil. Okay. So the Chose Muvar B'dvarav Shel Rabbi Yitzchak Deman Akko, who you can go to his caver, who he's literally buried in the middle of Akko, right? Those of you who made Aliyah more than 20 something years ago, right? You have to go to Akko to get your container, to sign for your lift with your stuff. Right? When people make Aliyah, so they send a container a lot of times, a lift.
To Haifa.
I had to go to Akko to get mine and sign some paper. And we're walking past the Meches, such an idiot. I reported all these things that were in that container that I didn't realize, like if I was bringing an alarm clock, that I was gonna have to pay, in those days, 300% tax on the value of those ancient, remember those red lights, alarm, beep, 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 those alarm clocks that we all used to use, right? Pay 300% tax on them. Anyways, so walking
There's
past,
taxes, I thought.
oh, there were. Walking past after paying the meches and being in a really great mood, walking past them, all of a sudden, I see this like in the middle of the city, this caver, Rav Yitzchak Deman Akko. Wow, what are you doing here? That was like a nice, oh wow, I'm happy I live in Eretz Yisrael, right? That's so much fun. You come out of meches and you get a caver of a tzaddik. Okay. So he says, Shevi Bereshis Chochma, Besof Perek Dalet Mishar Ha'ava, Shemi Shelo Cheshek Leisha, Hu Doma Lechamor. He says something very interesting. A person who doesn't desire a woman, he's like a donkey. Upachot mimenu, and he's even less than that. V'hatam ki mehamurgash tzarich she'avchin ha'avoda elokit. Because if a person doesn't have these feelings, right? If a person doesn't have desire in this world to be with somebody, to know somebody, to love somebody, then
physically or emotionally, or both together.
Both together, because it all comes together.
So many men like this, though,
right?
that are donkeys.
Or less.
I meant that, I'm sorry.
I'm always,
Yachmar.
Or they just want to have a quick fix and without getting married.
Well, they're long. I mean,
I'm always
mama
struck
too?
when I did the Kiddush,
No, they
Friday night. It says twice, with love and desire, with love
Ahava
and
u'beratzon.
desire, I want you. That's what Kodesh Baruch Hu is saying to us. So how can we not respond in kind? If you could say it once, but it says it twice, so it must mean that it's very important.
and then we say it. That's a very good point. We keep saying it in the Shemona Esrei too. Ba'ava u'veratzon, ba'ava u'veratzon, ba'ava u'veratzon, with love and desire. Yafeh ma'od. Okay. Point Hey. וזהו ביר דבריהם זיכרונם לברכה שבשעת פגישת יעקב אבינו עליו השלום עם יוסף. When Yaakov Avinu met with Yosef, HaTzadik, הוא קורא קריאה שמע. He started saying שמע. שבגאו לידי הרגשת אבס אב לבנו. When he felt the intensity and the full scale of what it means for a father to love a child, האוהב שהוא ממנו v'chelko. Ayin nesivos olam b'nesiv avos Hashem. Look at the Maharal. Hevir ve'eleh ha'ava l'mekora. He took that love and he elevated it to its source, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, avos Hashem. He transferred the intense to the 50th power, 100th power love that he had for his son, of being reunited with his son, and he transferred it to Hashem Yisrael, which is the whole point of Kriya Shema. So what Rav Gifter is saying here is, he's expanding this, he goes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us all these different relationships, and we're going to see this in Shir HaShirim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the relationship of child to parent, the love that a child experiences to a parent, right? Which is somehow automatic, even when they say that they don't love us, right? And they walk out or they do all kinds of things. The love is almost always still there, okay? And then there's a love from a parent to a child. There's a love from a man to a woman, from a woman to a man. There's a love from sisters and siblings one to another, okay? All of that is reflected in different psukim in Shir HaShirim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls us sometimes Achosi, my sister, Ra'ayasi, my wife, right? So we're HaKadosh Baruch Hu's daughter. Even HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls us Imi, right? Mamala, right? Where do they come from? Why do we call little kids Mamala, right? Mamala, Tatla. It comes,
Mommy, they call.
right? Israelis love that word, Mami,
Mom.
right? My kids call me
I get
Mami,
confused.
and my daughter-in-law uses it all the time, and I don't know who she's talking to me.
Right.
I thought it's someone else. Oh, who's she's talking to? Right? I don't know who Mami is. So that Mamala, right? Your little Mamala. HaKadosh Baruch Hu causes all those things because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us all these different relationships in our lives. And we live in a social setting, right? We live in a social place. We need friends. We are wired for social connection, okay? To the point where a person who doesn't desire any social connection, so we say that something's wrong with them, right? Something's up. There's something up here. A person who doesn't naturally want social connection with people, that's a red flag. What's the red flag? I'm not a diagnostic psychologist, so we'll leave that for the side. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wired us.
I'm too healthy.
Well,
Such a thing. So frustrating.
maybe yes, maybe I'm not saying you, but maybe there is something as people who can't be with themselves and they long. They just keep. I'm not saying you, but I think there is something extreme that people who need to be insanely always with people and maybe living vicariously through other people and not being able to even be with themselves and have no self, right? That's in a very extreme, but it does exist. Okay. So yeah, we want to be balanced, but Bezrat Hashem. Even though normal is the most like insulting word a person could give to somebody else, right? Just to call them normal, but
No, that's the cool now.
Oh, normal?
Because not normal is not like normal now. Like not like everyone's having tattoos and like piercings at every single place in their body. So like that's not abnormal anymore. It's like
so
if you're normal,
No normal is normal. That's normal.
I think that's what is normal.
it's like
who knows?
what is normal?
So to have this balance of having these relationships and having good and deep relationships and understanding through the many relationships that we have in this physical world, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu views us, how we can come to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us different relationships and we're tested, right, in these different relationships. And through working on our relationships, that is how we can ultimately work on relationships with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the place where we have the most challenging relationships is generally the place that we need to work our most in order to connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu through that type of love, right? Because the love between a parent and a child is different between the love between a child and a parent. And the love between a husband and a wife is different than the love between sisters. And the love between sisters is different than love between friends, right? So where we find ourselves struggling, where it hurts, that's where generally we need to open up and say, okay, how can I channel this in a better way to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How can I work on myself down here to be able to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through this channel. Now, nobody's going to have it all, okay? And nobody needs it all. We don't need it all. We need,
Why not?
why not? Because you don't need it all. You can get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and get to love without having it all, okay? And nobody has it all. Nobody has, nobody has, the best relationship with their parents, the best relationship with their kids, the best relationship with their siblings, the best relationship with their spouse, and the best relationship with friends, right?
And neighbors.
Oh, and the greatest way to have a good relationship with your neighbors is not even to. That's shalom. That's not a solution. I was joking. I was joking. Right. That's not the real solution, right? That's ignoring the problem. But if somebody who has problems with their neighbors, right? Well, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending them a signal, right? Sending them a signal. So in the past, somebody might have said, you know what, I have so much sorrows for my neighbors, I'm going to move, right? And what's going to happen when they move?
Because they're the problem.
Or worse.
I died in a bad neighbors move and she did.
Okay, yeah, that was.
You got better ones that come
No,
in.
I feel bad for their neighbors. That's how I thought.
Sometimes worse ones come in.
No, I have a better neighbor. She doesn't like me.
That was Bruria and Rabbi Meir, right? Rabbi Meir was very upset with the neighbors. Said, "Yitamu chatayim min haaretz, may the sinners be obliviated from the land." And Bruria said, "Yitamu chatayim min haaretz, may the sins be obliterated from the land." Right? Not the sinners. So we have all of these different relationships, and nobody has it perfect and down pat. And we don't need to be perfect and down pat. We need to be working beings, right? I'm working on myself. And the question is, where do I work, right? Which relationships do I need to fix? Which relationships do I need to realize that I need to change? Now, again, we can't control other people. We have no control over somebody else. And a lot of our effort sometimes in relationships is misdirected to make that person like me, or make that person be nicer to me, or make that person love me the way I deserve to be loved. And that doesn't work, right? It really doesn't work. Not only does it not work, but it just creates frustration, resentment, and hate, which is the opposite of love, which is the opposite of a relationship. So I have to look constantly inside. Where am I? Where do I need to be? Where do I need to improve? Where do I need to be maybe more me, right? And so, you said forgiving is, I don't know, sometimes we can't forgive something because we have to talk about it first, right? Because if we just forgive, we're not really forgiving. We're just pushing it under the carpet. Sometimes that's not forgiving. So we say, I forgive you, and then we filed it in your file, right? Until the next time, right? Okay, or I was mevater, but I wasn't really mevater, right? I put it in my file, and I had this one very weird experience one year where somebody who I rented an apartment from, there was a horrible mold in the apartment, which came out around the time of Corona, and she never took care of it. And eventually I left the apartment because I couldn't stand the mold, okay? And when I talk about mold, I'm talking about part of my furniture was ruined because the water had leaked so badly that the wooden bookcases, and I lost a lot of svarim, like the top two shelves of svarim, from the neighbor on top, were all destroyed, okay? So, and I continued to pay rent because I felt that was one thing had nothing to do with the other, and even whatever, I had my consideration. And afterwards, when I left the apartment, she was like, you need to fix this, you need to fix that. And I'm like, no, adka, right? I stayed in the apartment. There was horror. And when I mean horrible, I mean like the ceiling was colorful, like green, yellow, black, disgusting. In the kitchen, in my bedroom, it was dangerous. I think that's why I couldn't get rid of Corona. I had it for a couple months. It just wouldn't go away because in this mold infested place. And the living room, 3 rooms completely covered in colorful mold for, I think, 4 or 5 months.
Oh, that's so bad for your home.
So,
There's somebody who really didn't care about you.
or her apartment, right? She owns the apartment. You think you care about your own apartment. Okay, and all she needs to do was take care of it with the upstairs neighbor. Okay, everyone has their own, I have no idea. I don't really know her at all. So she's like, you need to paint. And I'm like, I am not painting that mold, right? No way, right? Ad can. I paid rent, be happy I paid rent. I'm not painting, not doing it. You want me to do it? Take me to a din Torah. I'm not painting the rent. If the din Torah tells me I need to paint, I'll paint. If not, forget it. So fine. When I left the apartment and of Erev Yom Kippur, like 2 hours before candlelighting, I get a phone call from this lady. I asked the Rav and he told me I should forgive you. And I'm like,
Oh, thank you.
Gee, thanks, yeah.
oh,
Well, what about me forgiving you?
okay. Thanks for letting me know. I said to her, do you want to talk about what actually happened? And she's like, no, I forgive you. And I'm like, are you asking me for forgiveness? I said to her straight out. I mean, like, why are you calling me now? Right? Are you asking me for forgiveness? She's like, I don't need your forgiveness. And I'm like, you know what? I think we really should talk about this. She's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, okay. You know what? I don't know what you want from me,
Cognitive dissonance.
but you know, wow. The point is that we really want to mend the conversation, mend the relationship. It needs work. It needs talking. It needs conversation. Forgiveness is not just here. I forgive you.
I
It's
would
not
have
a
just said, well, too bad, but I don't forgive you.
candy that we pass. Well, I did not forgive her.
Why
She didn't
not?
ask forgiveness, so it wasn't.
You didn't ask me about
You didn't ask me. I'm not going to say I forgive you. Like, ask me.
Exactly.
Otherwise you would be.
What is forgiving? Forgiving, I say forgiving unless I really am forgiving, and that needs a conversation, right? It needs to be worked out.
No, I don't think it does.
Michael,
I think it doesn't matter
okay.
about the other person, whether they know you've forgiven them or not. It's released yourself.
Sometimes you just have to forgive.
The question is, what does that mean to
Yeah, but
release
you
yourself?
only-
If
the
you
only
say
way
I
to do that
forgive,
is to actually have a conversation.
You really do from your heart. It's better for you.
do I care? I don't care, right?
You
Do
know,
I forgive? What am I forgiving for? We didn't even discuss it. Maybe I have nothing to forgive. Maybe it was just one big misunderstanding. Until there's some kind of conversation,
Exactly.
I could not care about it. I don't think about it too often, right? Unless we're talking about a good story about forgiveness and cognitive dissonance, right? But does it have anything to do with my life? Nothing. I don't think so, right? So if we want to really have a conversation, mend the relationship, it can't just be like, okay, I forgive. It's not enough. It's not enough. There has to be
Unless
dialogue.
like you did the dialogue and they really don't see your point and they're like just out to lunch, then there's a place, okay, now I see that they're never gonna understand me and it's never gonna get better. So I might as well just like forgive for myself because I don't need that in myself.
That's something else.
That's something else, but you did the dialogue.
Once you had the conversation,
Right, it makes a big
it's
difference.
real. It's not fake.
But
It's real.
it could be you don't forgive, but you're not wishing her ill or thinking
for
badly about
sure.
it. Right. Right.
One thing is that's already, that's a heavy, that's nikama, that's natira, that's not good.
But
Right.
sometimes people think like not forgiving is that.
Yeah.
I have a short story that I think is so important and people can take it to heart. Okay, so I had a landlord who would not fix the outside cracks. And when I fixed the inside walls, the water still came through because the outside cracks let the water in. So for 3 years, in the winter, I would talk to him about it. I'd say, show him pictures. I'd even show him where chunks of the wall fell out because it was so soggy. And he said, well, can't fix it when it's wet. We have to wait till it's dry. Then the dry time would come. He said, I can't see where the mold was. I can't see where the wetness was. So this went on for 3 years, still not fixing it. Of course, it's getting worse and worse. And so a neighbor came over and talked to him in Hebrew. And the neighbor said to him, if you don't fix this, she's not going to pay the rent. I'm not going to pay the rent. I got to pay the rent. I said, no. I said, well, tell him I won't pay the rent the month after this. He has a month to fix it, and then. So anyway, that month came, and he hadn't fixed it. And long story short, for 7 months, I put the money in escrow, and I did not pay the rent. He asked me one time to just hold back 1 month, but to continue paying. And I said, no, I want I want this fixed because I can't live here. And so during this time when we're arguing back and forth, and he has a daughter-in-law who's a lawyer who called me up and is recording the conversation, etc.
Ooh, that's illegal.
We had a parsha of Yaakov and Esau, and Yaakov fighting with the angel at night, and then the next day everything went really well with Esau. And it dawned on me, I can't do it head on with him. I need to ask God to take care of it. If God takes care of it in advance, then everything will come out all right. Well, time went on, it was my birthday, and I just couldn't stand myself anymore. I always pay my rent. I'm an honorable person, and I couldn't do it. And I knew I had to move out before the mold got too bad. And so I lost this battle. I lost it. I've got to go get the money, give him the money, and get out. And but I had asked God. I asked God about 2.5 weeks before the time when I felt I lost the battle. So I got all the money. I came over to his house, and he said, oh, first, and one other point is I was trying to think of something to say that where I wouldn't be so angry that all I could say is, why didn't you this and why didn't you that? So I said, one time when I came to pay the rent, your wife gave me tea. And so I said that. And then I handed over all the money. And he said, are you paying me because I told the contractor that he could fix the walls? And I said, you told the contractor that he could fix the walls? He says, yes, I told him yesterday. So
Can you hear the story?
Okay. He fixed the walls, and his wife started inviting me every time for family gatherings and every shoot up. I was invited to come and share it with the family. I became like an honored guest.
Wow.
Because I said the tea thing. That was the only thing I could think that was positive about our relationship.
It works.
I love it.